Welcome to Fusing the Unfusable. Tonight's guest, Mazen Aloul. Thank you for coming, Mazen. Mazen is the founder and CEO of WebQuest DMCC, a digital agency based in Dubai that really specializes in search engine optimization, or SEO, in both English and Arabic. He's worked with hundreds of websites over the last 10 years, including some of the largest across the MENA region. Prior to this, Mazen was a partner at a communications agency, a regional manager for a software development company, and a technical instructor. Mazen also does work with the Ministry of Education in the UAE to teach programming to high school students, forming the UAE National Youth Programming Team that participated in the International Programming Olympics. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah, that was some time ago, but yes.
amazing. Mazen, welcome to the show.
Thanks
for joining us and teaching us about SEO.
I'd love to.
We hear it so much, but it's involved, right?
Absolutely.
SEO is basically organic search, right?
Yes, it's everything below the ads when you run a search on Google.
Yeah. Amazing. So, marketing for businesses, businesses doing marketing, especially new businesses, it's changed tremendously over the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
The advent and adoption of the web, and then the whole mobile phone thing, has changed and improved our lives tremendously. We don't realize how much. Your work is really, really focused on this and dedicated to this organic search growth, right? Walk us through this domain and how you help businesses since many, many years now improve their bottom lines.
All right. So there's a lot happening and has been happening in this space. It moves very quickly. It adjusts to technology very quickly. So as you mentioned, when I first started 10 years ago, it was pretty easy it was easier to spam the system, try and use tactics just to gain that extra foot on the Google rankings. It's not as easy anymore. So there's a constant battle between those who are trying to take shortcuts, and I'd say mainly Google, because it's the dominant engine on the internet and for most of the world. So that there's a race and a competition between those who are trying to cheat the system and how Google reacts. But over the last 2 to 3 years, Google has employed more and more technologies to counter the spam tactics that were at the time are still trying to be developed.
When you say spam tactics, you mean they're looking for quality content rather than just having
absolutely
words?
Yes. So they're shifting to focus more on things that would help the end user and not websites or content or elements of websites that are made for machines. Right? So that has been the line. But with focusing on what's useful for the end user, you adjust and you steer websites to implement mobile-first technologies, to implement faster websites, to implement adjustable websites, etc., that help implement the best technologies for the end user and less focus on technical stuff.
So by default, by doing that, by improving the quality, the way your website looks, Google will then rank you higher?
It's one of many, many factors, but yes. So primarily improving the quality of the content, showing that it's written by real people with real experience, that this is recent in the last few years. Prior to this, you could post something without saying who wrote it, right? So ghostwriter, or you could copy and adjust and edit from different places. But now Google's at a point where it knows if you copied something from somewhere else, and even if you make some edits, it will know that this is not new, this is not useful, it saw it before. So it won't give you the advantage of ranking high for that, for example.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. So, here we are, we're talking about writing and humans writing, and we jump to the topic of AI, right?
Yes.
AI and OpenAI have really changed the way we search online. A lot of us are using ChatGPT for search and for intelligent responses, right? Not just and Google's done that as well. We see that, right? You see, I don't know what you call that, but the at the top sometimes when you ask a question, it does try to give you an answer. But how has this affected your work in organic search? Is there an opportunity to tweak the approach, or do we just keep I mean, you just said that you are continuously tweaking, right?
Yes.
To ensure that the algorithms, Google's algorithms are adjusting. So you need to kind of follow that. But how has that shift? I mean, this is relatively new. We're talking in the last few months.
Yes.
A lot of adoption.
There's a lot to unpack here. So as a starting point, Google has been using AI for quite a few years in its internal systems. I think what caught them off guard is the unleash of ChatGPT and the interface that they came with that technology. What was that? End of 2022, right? November, December 2022. And with that, it's been a race. Actually, the T in ChatGPT stands for Transformers, and it's a technology developed initially by Google, and it put out the papers out there on how it works, and that's how OpenAI adjusted and built a whole system based actually on Google technology. But yeah, back to the space. So what we're seeing is many things change, especially when it comes around content creation. I mean, I think primarily where we're seeing a lot of impact is the ease of creating content at the moment. So as soon as ChatGPT was released, you saw all these guides and videos of experts on the internet that went out and said, now you can create articles and blog posts with prompts, etc. Because prior to ChatGPT, it was easy to detect whether the content was written by a machine or by a person. With the release of GPT-3, 3.5, and now 4, it's almost impossible to tell the difference between human written and AI generated written. And interestingly, right around the same time, or 6 months after ChatGPT was released, Google adjusted their guidelines. So their guidelines specifically said that content has to be human generated, can't be machine generated. They adjusted the wording to say content has to be useful. Right, because the way the large language model technology or these ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, whatever, is based on going through existing knowledge. So they'll give you something that already exists. They won't give you something new. They don't have the creativity, etc. And the models are trained on snapshots of the internet, so they're not always up to date with the latest information out there. So with that in mind, when you prompt ChatGPT for an article, it's going to give you something that already exists, and that's something that Google systems already have seen and know. So therefore, the usefulness in the guidelines. If you're giving the internet or you're publishing something that already exists, you're not coming up with anything useful. Like, it's nothing new. So why should we rank you versus somebody who already had published that? So I think this is still something that not a lot of people have caught up to. We still see websites are crunching out tens of articles a week, and it's not working. It can work for the short term, but sooner or later, the whole site, the traffic crashes, etc. So the interesting part here is, back to your question, is that angle of adjustment within the whole SEO process, because content is one pillar out of several. And that's where we're seeing like an influx of content on the internet, which most of it is just repetitive of things that existed. So that's on the execution side. But when you come to look at the user behavior side, it's a different story. What we're seeing, it's still very, very early, but what we're seeing is people are heading to these language models for information-based searches, how to cook something, or how to do this, how to do that, asking for information about a certain topic. These models are very good at giving you decent answers. But if you dig deep into a topic, regardless of the topic, whether it's medical or technical or sciences or etc., it starts to be repetitive, it loses track, it might hallucinate. We've heard that a lot. So still, it's still not there. I don't know if it ever will be there in terms of a technology, but we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, it's, again, interesting space.
I'll share an anecdote with you on this. I love fixing my cars, and one of the things that are difficult to read are user manuals, repair manuals. And I thought, let me try. And I asked ChatGPT how to fix the fuse, or how to fix the fuse, find the fuse in the car for the rear shade of my car. And it was able to to guide me right to it just by having access to these repair manuals for a certain model.
Yep.
So it's prompting. You still have to ask the right question in the right way. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's really interesting. And tying it back to why are we talking about SEO? In the end, ranking is what gets traffic, right?
Yes.
So we're stating a bit the obvious, but if you want to have traffic, you want to be ranked in the top by Google in order to get some decent traffic, which is the objective, right?
Yes.
And I think if I was to summarize what you just said, it's basically still quality over quantity, right? Focus on quality content. Yes, it's nice to have a lot of blogs and articles, but if they're not quality, even the machine will detect that. If people actually read them, they'll come to the same conclusion, right?
Absolutely. And there's more focus now on other aspects that can prove that you are a real business with real people behind it versus just the the content for content's sake. So there are a number of new signals that Google has introduced around experience, authority, trust, where for example, when you publish something, it's highly recommended you put a name behind it. You have a profile that's linked to your social media profiles. So you're sending all these signals saying, I'm a real person. Here's my social media activity. I exist here. This is where I studied. This is my experience. These are the conferences I attended, etc. Versus just blurt out content which was written by the writer at company X, right? So that's where the focus is slightly shifted as well.
That's interesting. So when you're creating content, put your socials, put your LinkedIn, where you should have an up-to-date profile which shows that you're educated, that you're in this field. Link your other socials where the machine is able to cross-reference with your Twitter to see that you're actually talking about this and you're a reliable source, credible.
Yes,
that's really interesting. I love trust. Obviously, in Web3 we care a lot about trust and transparency, but this is really interesting. Didn't think of that Google's doing that, and obviously as these language models get better, Google is also going to get better, right?
Yes.
And I don't know much about their AI language models, but I know that they're obviously now rushing to improve and catch up.
They lost that race. They had the technology. They kept it internally, and now they're just trying to play catch up with ChatGPT. But being the first entrant, I think ChatGPT still has the largest market share in that space.
That's incredible. It's incredible what ChatGPT's done. So we've probably answered this question, but let me ask it again. What are some of the things small businesses and startups still not doing right to improve their online footprint?
Have a website where you can show as real information as possible. So that includes, for example, pictures of your team members, right? Not stock images, pictures of your actual team members, of your offices, of conferences you've attended, maybe an activity within the team. In terms of content, something that again that reflects your experiences. Definitely in the About Us section, talk about how the company was founded, the people behind it, identify the individuals, have profile pages for the members of the team where you show, this is Kareem, he studied here, this is his experience, he worked at this place and that place, here's his LinkedIn. So all this now matters versus having a profile which full of Shutterstock images and content generated by ChatGPT. That won't get you too far. That's
interesting. That's really interesting, and I think very useful for.
Absolutely.
So let's jump to another one of my favorites and one of my favorite people, Gary Vee.
Mm-hmm.
He once said, and I quote, "Find Malibu real estate before it becomes Malibu real estate," when he was referring to voice search. And my understanding is that voice search can be improved via SEO. So, how do businesses change the way they market themselves in order to ensure that they are improving the voice search? Because Siri is about to get a huge upgrade, depending on when this podcast is released. But it looks like it's not too far.
Okay. I remember a few years ago, 6-7 years ago, when there was a lot of talk about voice search and voice search is coming, and that's going to eat up a lot of the searches we see from your typical search in text, etc. Honestly, we didn't see much. I think it's a layer that comes in terms of entering the query, as opposed to using devices like Siri, etc., because the underlying fundamentals still remain the same. And in terms of looking at traffic sources to almost all the websites I've worked with over the last 10 years, we saw very, very little traffic coming in from all these different machines. Most of it is from search engines or devices. So it wasn't the big shift that everybody thought it would be, or most people thought it would be. However, the advice was, when it comes to, for example, your important pages, your service pages, your e-commerce landing category pages, etc., have a section about FAQs, frequently asked questions. So give a question, a simple question, a common question, and a very simple, short answer. No need to overstuff it with things left and right. And that helps, because those are the ones that are easy to pick up, and probably what people are asking, or a variant around that people are asking. And that's how you get visibility there.
Yeah, FAQs, I remember, are really important and underestimated, right? Underrated.
Yes.
That's really interesting. I think what's happening with voice search is that, often they don't understand, right? Our queries.
Yes.
So unless you keep your query very simple, to Siri or to Alexa, you're gonna get they might misunderstand it, right? Especially with spelling names and things.
Yes.
But what's happened with ChatGPT, and I have it on my phone, is that it's much better.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm having conversations with ChatGPT in the car, right?
Yes.
And building up results that I might, once I finish driving, can catch up and read on. And so I think there's going to be a change. I think Siri is getting a major upgrade. There's some debate about how Apple's going to do that. Are they going to use OpenAI, or their data is not going to leave Apple? There's some discussions ongoing right now, but it feels like Siri is going to get an upgrade, because if ChatGPT can do it, why can't Apple do it, or Google? So it's going to be interesting to see. Interesting times.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what do you see as the biggest opportunity in the coming 2 years for businesses that are really switched on, and what's the secret sauce? You've mentioned, you've given us a lot of tips. Thank you. I'm sure our listeners will benefit from that, especially the FAQs, the fact that focus on quality, the about us. You've given amazing advice. But what's coming? What's coming? What's coming ahead?
Things are moving really quickly. So your window now is 3 to 6 months down the line. A year down the line is very far off within this space, right? There's a lot that can come in. What we're seeing is obviously the more reliance on AI in different things. So now we're seeing it in image generation, in video creation, again, prompting to create videos, prompting to create images. So everything around content creation. I think we'll see more integration with different systems where AI can help the integration, and drive automation and workflow management between different parts of the organization. So it will help make existing teams much more productive. We use it a lot, for example, for junior level employees. It's very easy for them to learn quickly, because again, it has a lot of these answers to the basics. But once you're asking more detailed intermediate stuff, it can give you things that are a little bit off or incorrect. And when it comes to really deep knowledge, it's usually, it doesn't know, can be wrong. So just be a little bit careful there. But yes, in terms of learning curves, in terms of information available for teams, fast track research, get ideas. That's where we see things shifting really quickly.
I think that's really valuable advice. in the content, basically the advice is that for content creation, do use AI, but be careful, verify it, but use it more for creativity, for brainstorming, for finding ideas, but then still focus on the quality and make sure that, you know, the text is vetted and you're not spewing stuff that will make you look silly and eventually hurt your organic search results and your business and that.
Absolutely, yes. Just make sure you read whatever that.
I have a question that's not really related to SEO, and I don't know if you're. So the image generation capabilities, I've been playing around with it, but I find that whenever I create an image, it misspells things in the image.
Yeah, because it's drawing it. It's trying to draw the letters, again, based on semantics. I saw the same thing. If you tell it to put some words on the images, most of the time there's misspelling. It might get it right, but I found that to be the minority of cases. So in the vast majority of issues, there's misspellings, misalignments. Even if you try in Arabic, it's even funnier than in English.
I haven't tried in Arabic. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's even harder, right? Because the language models have less to work with, or
yes, probably less data out there. Yes, absolutely. Like if you think of the amount of content being generated and put out in English versus Arabic or any other language, English by far is the most dominant. I can reference here a study I did, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, about Arabic content, right? So if I remember correctly, there are 300 to 400 million Arab speakers, which is 5 to 6% of the world population, maybe 7% of the world population. But when you come to look at content on the internet, the amount of content at the time, the amount of Arabic content in terms of overall percentage was less than 1%. So when you have the world population, Arab world populations is 6, 7%, 8%, but the content on the internet is less than 1%. You have a big gap. I think it's a little bit better now, but this goes to show that there is a lot to gain in terms of building an online presence in Arabic with quality content, because that 1% includes, or that less than 1%, includes a lot of forums and really low quality content. Not only like decent websites, but yes, it's lacking a lot. It's quite an open space.
Which brings me to the final question. You know, we're obviously work with various startups, and website goes up in English.
Yeah.
How much value is there to create the proper Arabic content?
Its growing value really depends on your market, your target audience. So, for example, if you look at online presence in Saudi, it's primarily in Arabic. Like the youth, their presence, their profiles, their searches, everything's in Arabic. I would say the same in Iraq, in Egypt, in Algeria. So these countries with large or big populations, especially big young populations, their first exposure to online and their interaction online is primarily in Arabic. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and everything that they're interested in, right? So we're seeing a lot of interest around sports, news, some e-commerce more and more, anything around fashion, football clubs, TV series. So there's massive interest there, and in more now medical, like end user medical information and websites. But still, I think on the business to business side, it's still not there. So I think people or executives, higher, medium, upper management, they still tend to search. If they're looking for something, they'll tend to do it in English more than in Arabic. So B2B, not as much, but it's there, it's growing. But I still think the English side is still a little bit stronger. But when it comes to B2C, and things that are for youth, people in their 20s and 30s, the opportunity is there. The competition is much less than it is in English in terms of online presence and SEO.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for all these tips. I mean, they're very valuable. Mazen, I look forward to having you again.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karim. It's been a pleasure.